Welcome back, everyone. We are on a brand new month and some new lessons from A Course in Miracles. So Jenny, how has your last 14 days with A Course in Miracles been?
Really great. It feels like things are starting to make, just like when we were reading the text, making a little more sense. The fluidity is coming a little bit more. Like we know that the lessons all build on each other, but I can really start to feel into that a bit more. Getting better at incorporating it throughout the day. At times, other times I'm not as great at it, right? Because we're humans here having a spiritual life anyways, or spirits having, how do you say that? Spiritual beings here having a human experience.
Yeah.
And definitely that, right? Which is just fine. But I really noticed in the last week and a half, just my thoughts going to the lessons when I'm in the midst of something that the universe would be going like, this is a great time to practice this. And so I'm really enjoying that. That is something that I love. I've chatted about it before. I don't know that I ever have the words right about any of this work, is that we can lead our regular, normal, like quote unquote, normal lives and do this work and incorporate this work into our lives. It doesn't mean we all have to go and live in an ashram and, take vows of silence and only eat, vegan meals or like any of that stuff. You can lead your own life that you've intentionally chosen and get to explore in all of this. So I love that. So that feels like that is coming out just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about for you?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I feel like I'm getting into the rhythm of it. Because I think, for a while there it was like, okay, like set alarm once every 2 hours, once every hour. Like, I was just trying to figure it. I've realized that my rhythm right now is once every hour and a half. that seems to be my rhythm right now. I love how now, not all of the exercises, but most of the exercises, it's roughly like 3 to 5 times a day.
Yeah.
And it really only takes you about a minute each time.
Yeah.
So really like 5 minutes per an exercise, another 5 minutes to read the page. It's like 10 minutes of your day. It's not asking a lot of us.
No.
I think when you can see like the thickness of the book and, how it's definitely a marathon to read and there's the challenges, it can kind of feel like, oh shit, is this going to be really difficult to do? And I'm finding with the lessons, don't get me wrong, there's some days where I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing this correctly, or I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong or whatever. I'm very much letting go of that judgment or questioning of that and just being like, however I'm doing it today is the best way I'm doing it.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. There was one day, so I was a couple days behind you, and I'm probably a couple more days behind you now. But basically there was what was the sentence? There was one day where every half an hour we had to say, I am determined to see.
Yeah.
And when I was doing that exercise, when it came up, I had a bunch of meetings that day. So it's not like I could have a timer go off every half an hour. And it just felt rude to like whoever I was with to do that with. If it was for a weekend or something like that, or like a normal work day where I'm not having meetings, then it would have been fine. And so with that one, I think I did it like 10 times that day. And when I got to the end of the day, I didn't feel satisfied with it. I was like, I wanted to do that a bit more. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to just give myself one more day to do it. To be honest, I did it like another maybe 15 times. It wasn't like I did it every half an hour either. And then that's kind of when I realized, okay, like what I did was what I did. I didn't have to try to correct it or make it better or whatever. It's okay. You can move on to the next one now.
You get to do it again next year.
Yeah, exactly. So what's
And
the point of
because they
worrying about
build
it?
on each other, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's still
Well, and with that one, because it was such a repetitive and it was such a simple sentence, I did notice myself throughout the rest of that week. I would, even though I was doing like other exercises and such, I would say like, I'm determined to see, I'm determined to see.
No, it's okay. You were just saying that that you found that one lesson of I'm determined to see.
Yeah.
Just continued on even in amongst the other lessons as you continued through them.
Yeah. So I find like, especially because I don't know how quickly after, but it was that vengeance one that you and I were curious about, appeared quite quickly after that one. And I did notice like, and that one, I think we only had to do, I know this is like going by memory now, but I think that one we had to do like 5 that day of that.
I don't remember. Yeah.
And so, with it, like, especially during that exercise, because it's very much you view the world around you. And the last bit of the exercise of that particular one, which I thought was so beautiful, was, is this the world I really want to see, or something along the lines of that? And it's like, yeah, of course not. And in it, it's like at the end of the exercise, it's like, oh, the answer should be obvious. And it's like, yeah, it is true. I don't want to see a world like this.
Yeah.
Right? I manifested not so nice of a world. Even when I was seeing really beautiful things, I was like, yeah, it could be better. But yeah, so basically, yeah, so even with that, I would go through bits where I was like, okay, I'm determined to see, I'm determined to see. So it's quite interesting when I can't even tell when it comes up, but maybe when I'm a bit frustrated with something, or when I'm having a weird situation with my neighbor right now. When there's some awkward moments like that, I do find myself like going back to that line of I'm determined to see. So yeah. I have probably completed that exercise if I were to do it every half an hour by now. But that's not why I'm doing it anymore. It's because that line has kind of stuck.
Yeah. So it's obviously one that just resonates with you. And so then it becomes a part of how you move in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Which is beautiful and a miracle.
Yeah.
And then when you apply it, it's also a miracle. And they just build on each other like that. Is the lesson that you're thinking of the seeing things that I could see peace instead of this?
No, the one that I was thinking of is, let me just I have the book on my phone here, just 1 second.
There's another way of looking at the world. I loved that I have invented the world I see.
Yes. So
and I am not a victim of the world. I am not the victim of the world I see.
So kind of the start of the seeing thing, was very much that I am okay. So it starts off with lesson 20 with the I am determined to see.
Yeah.
The next lesson is I am determined to see things differently. And lesson 22 was our like curious one where they start using the word vengeance. What I see is a form of vengeance. And that exercise, what it says isn't terrible, like of what you say when you observe the world. So with this exercise, you take 1 minute to observe the world around you, and then you repeat out loud, I see only the perishable. I see nothing that will last. What I see is not real. What I see is a form of vengeance. And then you end this practice period by asking yourself, is this the world I really want to see? And then it cheekily says in the book, the answer is surely obvious.
Right.
And like I love how like I'm like, we're so far along now where I could be like, yeah, that was a bit of cheek.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is beautiful because like I was saying, even when I was seeing beautiful things, I was like, right, like,
yeah,
this isn't really the world I want. Like, it could be even more beautiful. It could be even better. But yeah, that was kind of the start on like the seeing. And so that's what I feel the majority of the lessons this last little bit, or like the theme, or was more, I think before lesson 20, it was very much more about like thoughts I felt.
Yeah.
This is a little bit more about like the seeing aspect of it. So we're getting to like that next level of like complication, or adding in some more senses to the lessons.
Yeah. I had, so my favorite little swath of them the past 2 weeks was 31 to 34.
Mm-hmm.
And so 31 is I am not the victim of the world I see. And then it builds, I have invented the world I see. There is another way of looking at the world. And then I could see peace instead of this.
That's
So those
beautiful.
ones I felt was really getting out of the victim mindset and any sort of victim energy and any that it's the world and the outside part, getting into the I have created this, right? And also taking 100% responsibility for how we see and move through the world.
Yeah.
Right. I love that. And so I've got a funny story about the so 34, I could see peace instead of this. So that day I go out skiing with my little dog and go to the ski club here. So it's cross country skiing, but there's a whole set of trails where you can bring your dog and it's separate from the rest so the dogs can just run and whatever. So we're going, and I haven't been skiing. I think I might have mentioned this last time. I don't remember. It's been 11 years since I was cross country skiing regularly. And so I've just gotten back to it and there and having a wonderful time. So we go, and it's been crazy warm here. Yes, we have some snow still, but it's really warm. And my skis are waxless. However, it was so sticky that I was walking down the hills. And I was just like, okay, I could see peace instead of this because I'm getting frustrated and I'm, having to knock my skis with my poles. And I'm like, it's one of my skis is gliding. So it's just enjoy that glide. And like I was doing all these things, like you're still out in nature. The air is still fresh. We're still having a great time. And I did that, both sets of skis completely let loose of their snow. And I was able to glide again and enjoyed one whole big part of the trail. And just like, just in the glory of it. And it's wonderful. And then, the trail changes up and all of a sudden it's really sticky again. And so I just like, do you know what? I'm still out here. I'm still doing this. It's still beautiful exercise, like doing all these great things going, that's just a thing that's happening. And I could change my perspective on it. And they loosened up again and I'm going again. And it happened over and over and over again. But at the end, the last, half a kilometer was a total slog fest. Like I had so much snow in my skis. It would not let loose. And by this time, we've gotten closer to other people that are on the trail. They're way ahead of us. Like I can't see them or hear them, but my dog can smell them or hear them or see them because she runs ahead of me and then comes back and whatever. So she starts her little dog high-pitched barking. So now I've got all this snow stuck to my skis. I'm a hot, sweaty mess. And my dog is driving me crazy because it's not peaceful at all anymore. And I got so angry, Chantal. It was so beautiful. I got so angry. My heart was just racing. And I'm telling my dog, quiet. You're wrecking the peace. And all these things. And what I realized is that it got right back into like up out of the flagpole or onto the flagpole and out of the berries of our emotions and just going, oh, you're so frustrated right now. Like, go ahead and feel that frustration. I just like felt it, but it felt really clean. And like the anger felt clean. And so I just let myself feel it without getting, totally embroiled in it. But you like just picture it, right? Like I'm just a hot, sweaty mess. By the time I take my skis off at the end of the trail, there's a good 6 to 8 inches of snow stuck to the bottom of my skis. That's how much I've got on there. And the dog's driving me crazy and everything. And I was just like, just feel the anger. I haven't felt angry for a long time. And I just got to work a whole bunch of anger out and I just moved the energy. And then by the time we got back to the vehicle, and I got all this snow off my skis and got the dog in the car. And then I just drove away from it. Like I just left it there on the trails. It was just done. I had moved the energy and, the couple minutes that it took for me to get home, done. And I had a really peaceful day. And so I just thought it was, again, another example of we're not looking to always be in peace and all. Life isn't like that. It
Yeah.
is real, and we get angry and we get frustrated and the dog barks and the snow sticks to our skis. And we can look for the peace in it, and we can not feel the peace in it as well and come back to it.
Yeah.
Right? Because the divine is always there. It's not like the divine goes, oh, she's totally lost her shit, so now we're not going to hang out with her anymore. Divine's always there. When we lose our shit, when we don't lose our shit, at all times it is there. Yeah. And it is when we know and trust that and can feel that is when we can also give ourselves permission to be us. The really great parts and the really not as pretty to look at parts. Yeah. And so I love that. And I think it was just another example of doing this work in a real life situation and continuing on. Yeah, so I loved that. And then I had an interesting experience last night. I got invited to go. There's a woman who's just moved to the area, and she has lived in ashrams for a super long time, and she leads chanting and yoga and all sorts of things. So I got invited for a night of chanting, and I went and I had, excuse me, a really lovely time. And you know what it's like sometimes when you meet somebody new and you're like, ooh, this person's so interesting. I like their energy and all of these things. And I've done it before where I, meet somebody new and I'm in somebody's home, and then you start comparing your life and your home to theirs and giving yourself a hard time. Well, I didn't do that. And I witnessed myself not doing that just because somebody else had a little seed of something that just reminded me of it. And I thought it's just another thing around A Course in Miracles, and just like what I have chosen. Yeah. What I've chosen to focus on, what I've chosen to bring into my life, and all of those things. And it was just, again, up out of the berries and witnessing myself not going down that path and going, oh, like however long ago, I would have been like, oh man, I should really live more like she does. And I should really do this more like she does. And just because it's somebody who was like, ooh, I like her energy and she's interesting to me. So it was just another example, again, of that real life noticing of A Course in Miracles in my real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it was really, really great. And just when you notice also little seeds, when somebody mirrors back to you, either where you currently are or maybe where you've been in the past, is just so beautiful then to send them love and energy and all of those things instead of judgment. Yeah. Right. Like we get when we can get out of self-judgment, and then also out of judgment of others, that judgmental part, right? To do that was just really nice. And I was grateful for that little seed, because that's what helped me to reflect and go, oh, before I would have gone down this whole neural pathway and didn't even occur to me this time. So yeah, really neat experience.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah. And I've never chanted for I think we chanted for almost 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. With her leading.
It was come up.
Yeah. Some great stuff around. One of the chants that we did was around the Ho'oponopono, and just some stuff that I've been working on. It took a leap forward. It just changed up again. And so it was great. And I think it just so had to do, one, with the full moon energy, but the energy of the other women, excuse me, of the other women, and also of somebody else taking the lead and me being able to just sink into it a little bit. Yeah. Just changing the experience up of using that, the Ho'oponopono prayer. So yeah, it was really, really great.
Oh, yeah, really great. Awesome. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
So what else can we talk about with the Course in Miracles today? Were there any exercises that you found particularly challenging, or ones where you're kind of like, eh?
There was one about, let me just see. The word holy, just holiness, is the ones that I'm on right now. And I had an interesting thought about it, or I thought it was. Lesson 26 was my attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. I struggled just with exactly what all that meant.
Yeah.
I could get it and feel the seed of it, and then it would disappear. And then I'd get it and get the seed of it and disappear, and it would disappear. Yeah. So yeah, I had, what did I try? Oh, something that Marianne Williamson commented on in her comments is to try to correct errors as they occur. You and I chatted about this at one point. I don't remember if it was here or where it was. Both our own and forgiving others. And when we know that we've made an error, to go back, that it's easier to go back sooner rather than later, and how it just feels so much different.
Yes. Okay. So this had to do with my hairdresser.
Yes.
Who's also my friend, who I keep on calling my
Yes.
hairdresser. Yes.
Did
So
you get a chance?
I saw her. So me and her met up to hang out. So she has been studying, I believe it's her master's. And basically she had to do all these crazy exams, so then she found out if she passed or not on Thursday. And so she was like, I feel like on Friday I'm going to want to celebrate. I'm like, yeah, let's meet up, like whatever time, but let's do it. And so me and her met up, and we like chatted and had fun or whatever, blah, blah. And then when we went to finally have lunch or whatever, I brought it up and I was like, by the way, like, this has been really weighing on my mind. I wanted to like apologize. I owe you an apology. This is what happened. This is why I said that. Like, and I didn't mean to just say that you are your job, or, like and I was like, I tried to write you a text message about it and it just came out wrong. And so I didn't. And like, this is why we're only talking about it now. And she like burst out laughing, like not at, but she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, please don't let this weigh on you so heavily. She's like, I didn't mind. She's like, I figured that's what happened too. It didn't really bother me. I didn't really like, she's like, yeah, I knew you did it, but it didn't really like register as it was a bad thing or a malicious thing or whatever. Like, she's like, dude, it's totally okay. And she's like, and it's true, I am your hairdresser. I'm like, okay, like as long as you're okay with it, but like, I'm really sorry. So yeah, it was good, but yeah, it was that thing where like, because I didn't deal with it very quickly, it built up a lot. So even when I was speaking to her about it, I probably overcomplicated it too, in like the way that I was apologizing for it, because I've built it up in my head, even though she didn't. For me, it was very much built up. So yeah. You got to correct it right away, man.
Yeah. And it feels better, and it saves us time and energy and all sorts of things, right? Yeah. And sometimes we don't realize that we've done something until it's 3 days later. Then all of a sudden you're like, second, I'm just looking at this differently now, or I can see it more clearly, or whatever it is, and just go back and correct that error. We're going to err. It's just the way that it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the word holiness is now coming in. I'm not sure if you're on those ones. It starts at lesson 35, I think. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And then 36 is my holiness envelops everything I see. And then 37 is my holiness blesses the world. And I was really, as I was working through these, I was really playing around with that word holiness and what it means to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it means wholehearted, whole spirit, whole divine mind, like the whole being. Because when I first see holiness or hear holiness, I think like pedestal, like thou art holy, like whoop, up here. And so it was a great reframe for me about just around that wholeheartedness. And also in that, like when I was doing the lesson for today, I really envisioned my bubble of holiness touching other people's bubble of holiness, touching other people's bubble of holiness, and it just having that ripple effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Because that feels like quite like, I feel like that there's a lot of unconditional love meditations that feel that way.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That that is a really nice way to look at it. Because I agree with you. When I think of holiness, I think of that pedestal as well. Or even though, it may not be like the world's most beautiful pedestal, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, someone that's better than me, or whatever it is. It's that like that
Exactly.
person is like, oh, they're so
That
connected.
elevated in any way.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I feel like it has a bit of that like that guru aspect to it, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, yeah. And it's I have a question. Do you feel like okay, I don't know how to, because these words don't actually exist, but do you think like when someone has a coach that's very clearly very connected and really on it, um do you think that people kind of give them this like holy?
Totally, I think that they do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what kind of coach they are. It could be a sports coach, a nutritional coach, a spiritual coach, an accountant, like any sort of like, let me show you the way person.
Yeah.
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 That people do. They put them on a pedestal, even the ones that have not been asked to put there. Some do ask to get put there,
Yeah.
right? It seems. And others, they've never asked for that, but we do it anyways. And then when they fall, because inevitably they will, we are so disappointed and so pissed off at them that how dare you be imperfect and fall off the pedestal that I put you on.
I see this happen with coaches all the time. And I must admit, this is one of my fears of coaching.
Yeah.
Is I never want to be put on a pedestal.
No.
Like my whole goal when I coach someone is I want to show someone that they can do what I can do. I'm not special.
No.
Like everyone can be intuitive. Everyone can have these gifts.
Yeah.
It's not just a one person thing.
No.
I'm not gifted, I feel like I have gifts, but we all have gifts. I'm not a gifted person. Yeah.
And we've chosen what gifts it is that we want to develop more of and get interested in and then share with the world. And everybody gets to choose what their gifts are.
Absolutely. And everyone can change them if they want to and whatever. Like it's flexible.
Yeah.
And this is where when it comes to so this is where when it comes to coaching, I do get really nervous about this. And because I've seen it over and over again where especially in group coaching, right? If someone has I like it's harder to witness in one-to-one coaching, but okay, here are my thoughts. When someone does one-to-one coaching, but they also do group coaching, you'll notice that some of the one-to-one clients will join the group coaching. And I find sometimes that is the moment where at some point in that group coaching session or whatever, sometimes that's when the person will start to fall from the holiness. And it's like the people who are used to getting that one-on-one attention, there's when they see them in a group, there's something that like all of a sudden this person, because you're able to compare them to others, you see them next to others. I don't quite know what it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's when they kind of fall off of this pedestal. And the person who they fall off, the person who views it as this person's fallen off the pedestal, the person who put them on the pedestal, I guess, gets really hurt by it. And it's the act of putting someone on this unrealistic pedestal that just doesn't exist. You're hurting yourself by that. Like it's a very interesting phenomenon. I want to know more about this. Like there must be studies on like the psychological aspects of like having a guru or a coach and seeing them as much more than they are, or that also feels wrong to say too, but
it's that pedestal, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's something that you and I've witnessed.
Yeah.
Right. And so as soon as you we're talking about, so people who've done one-on-one coaching and then they join a group coaching with that same coach, and that's when you've seen it happen, how much of it is that person walking in with that special relationship that happens between a coach and a client in one-on-one situation, and now we're in a group, and now me as that one-on-one client is like, wait a second, you mean that you like everybody else, like that you're connected with all these other people the way that you're connected with me? How dare you?
Yeah,
How
I'm not
dare you?
special. Our connection's not special.
Exactly. Instead of looking at it and going, wow, isn't it amazing that they are able to connect so beautifully with all of these people?
And this is why they're so good.
And this is why they're so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then not going, this is why they're so good, and I'm going to put them up on a higher pedestal. Right.
Totally.
Now, I have chatted about this with Sharon, who is my coach and who you know, and who
this
you
is what I feel like I need to chat about with Sharon.
Yes. And I came to her going, Sharon, I do not remember this scenario anymore, even, which is beautiful because I obviously worked through it and let it go. I can't remember if it was a one-on-one client or one of my groups. And I went to her and I'm like, Sharon, I'm feeling a little worried because like I am in the midst of the same thing that my client is. And now I'm feeling like an imposter. And she's like, no, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. She said, as we know, those things that we are meant to work on, or we want to work on and don't want to work on, and all the things, that's going to be reflected back and mirrored by our clients, right? And we want to be working with people who are in the midst of things, but that we can relate to it. And it's not like I did it 25 years ago. And 25 years ago, I think it kind of felt like this. So I'm sort of trying to relate to you. Sometimes we're just that little tiny bit ahead of our clients.
Yeah.
And so I ended up doing a really simple post about it at one point. And what did it say? It was like, live it, learn it, teach it.
That's all you can do.
And sometimes it really is, you're just like a half step in, and I don't even like to use the word ahead, but like further in the journey of a particular topic or subject or whatever. And so you've got like that real time experience and energy to share with your client around it all.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're not looking to be on a pedestal, like you said. We're looking to be of service, only of service. And that's why I love it when people share really, really honestly about things that are going on for them, including coaches, when they say, I was doing, some sort of story, whatever their story is, going, we had a situation where we were working with a coach, and it was during our training, and they shared a story about walking in the park with their husband, and their husband, it was in the midst of COVID stuff, and their husband ended up getting into a yelling match with somebody on a bicycle. And I was like, I love that, because it was a very real moment that she shared, and she shared her thoughts and feelings about it and all of those things. Like, I was like, that's just regular people having regular lives and incorporating this work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, and when the other thing I notice is when someone puts someone on a pedestal, especially a coach, is there does start to be this dependability, as if like this person has all the answers. And when a coach does these beautiful things, like say something that's completely normal, right, happens to everyone. Like my husband decided to yell at someone while I was at the park or whatever. That happens. That, like, I like to think I'm a magical being, but like I'm not pure magic. Like,
no. Magical, not pure magic. I like that, right? Like, and that we all are. And none of us, we're all erroring all over the place. Like it's real. It's real life.
Yeah.
And I think as coaches, I know it's something that I do because I've witnessed other people doing it. And then as their client, it helps me is I share like the yelling in the park stories, like the going skiing and getting really angry at the snow and the skis and my dog. And like, that's how I felt right then.
Well, and and this is just it, right? What a beautiful lesson to learn of like, the skis are flying up, I'm getting hot, I'm getting sweaty, the dog's barking, this and that, and it's like, I have moments of flow and moments of not, and
moments of stuck.
Yo-yo. But I can just leave it at the park.
Leave it at the park. It's okay.
Yeah.
I think that's an awesome topic, the pedestal. I remember the moment, I don't remember how old I was. I was older than I probably should have been when I realized my dad wasn't like the be all end all and that my dad wasn't right about everything. I was like in my early 20s is how old I was, Chantal. And I was shocked. I was like, it almost brought me to my knees. I don't remember what the situation was or anything, but I was like, oh my gosh, my dad isn't right about everything. And like, quote unquote, right. Just in that whole realm of there's a million ways to do something.
I was probably around the same age, but for me, it was my mother.
Okay.
With my dad, I realized that really soon. I don't think I ever had this like epiphany with my dad of like, oh, like he says some stuff that's messed up.
Yeah.
But
we all do.
With my mom, it was like, oh, okay. And one is quite interesting. Someone that I know who is a mindfulness meditation coach, she was telling me about how the 20s is a person's transition into going into a role where they're starting to take care of their parents. So like it's like the roles start to reverse. So I think roughly by the time you're 30, you're kind of, rather than like your parents being on the pedestal or being like the authority, you kind of are equal, if not like it starts to look a little bit like that, depending on the age difference between you and your parents. And then it slowly goes like that. And so in my 20s, there was this huge, my parents had me a bit older. And so there was this huge turmoil that I had where I started to realize that my parents, not like I've always been one where like I will help my parents with the bags or whatever. But I was like, there was a time when I was like, oh, I'm doing it out of being nice. Now I'm doing it because they also, yes, I'm being nice, but they also need me to do it. Right. Like there, and there's like little transitions where, oh, like my mom's not sharp with that, or, oh, my mom doesn't realize that the internet doesn't always tell the truth. Or like, there's like little bits where you're like, okay, like this is, or you can start seeing like this is one thing that always shocked me about my mom, was she was the one that always introduced us to yoga. She always seemed ahead of the curve of all of her friends and things about yoga, mindfulness, eating fruits and vegetables, organic, veganism, whatever. Like, but she always seemed a little bit ahead of the curve on the more holistic, natural, well-being, meditation, everything, right? She used to always take herself, like, she would always book 1 to 2 retreats a year to go work on herself. And there came a point where I was like, oh, my mom stopped doing that. Like she's officially stopped working on herself. And that was like the heartbreaking moment for me, where I was like, oh, like I thought she was like, I looked up to her so much because of that. And even to this day, like with friends when they have kids and whatever and all this stuff, I'm like, yeah, like my mom used to do this. And like, she used to just leave us with her dad so that like my dad wasn't around much because of how much he worked. But every once in a while she'd just go and be like, no, you got to deal with the kids now. Like, I'm going to go recharge. Like, I don't care. Like you can feed them and dress them for a week. Like I trust that they won't.
Yes.
And my dad would get us pizza delivered to the school. So be it. But yeah, so but yeah, that for me was the shock with my mom, was when I saw her as this person who will always work on herself, that will always be a bit ahead of the curve in those ways, will always have the answer of what will make me feel better, or like different things I can try to feel better or work on myself or whatever. She'll always know that. And then I was like, oh, she doesn't know that anymore, and she doesn't do it anymore. Okay.
Interesting.
So, but
The
yeah.
pedestal. It's a great topic.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
God, we could talk about that for like years.
I think so.
How do you feel like, I mean, we kind of covered it a little bit. In the readings of A Course in Miracles or the lessons, do you feel like that they have addressed the pedestal? Do you feel like you have learned a lot of stuff about the pedestal?
When I hear the word pedestal and A Course in Miracles together, the line that comes in is one that I've said before because I love it so much. And it's that God wants teachers, not martyrs.
Yeah.
And I also think of how Marianne Williamson comments on the lessons and just says, like, we're not stupid. Like, we know that I can't even, like, we know that we're doing this spiritually. We're not actually going around and telling people, oh, I share my holiness with you. Like, we're not. So those sorts of things, like she's great at really bringing it down to earth.
Yeah.
The lessons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How about for you?
I feel like in the sense that, I mean, I have rarely in the bookstore have seen the book sold as individual volumes. I think I've only seen that in one bookstore in my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And that possibly was Banyan in Vancouver, but I might be mistaken. I've only seen it where you get the text, the workbook, and then the teacher
module. Yeah.
And just with that alone, with the fact that that's what you get every time, is everyone can be a teacher.
Yep.
Anyone who wants to do this, you can be a teacher. And as you're reading it, I feel like we're kind of encouraged to see the world around us as, even though people aren't doing the book, let's say, the people we come across, there are teachers as well, because they're throwing stuff in our faces.
Totally comes through in the book. Yep.
Yeah. So I feel like on that sense, do I feel like it puts Jesus on a pedestal or the Holy Spirit? I feel like, okay, I do feel like, I don't think that the book intentionally does this. I think this is me putting this on the pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like for me, the pedestal person probably would be a bit of Jesus and a bit of like Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit. I think they're a bit of like the pedestal figures for me.
Sure.
And I would argue the Holy Spirit the most out of the three.
Okay.
Because the Holy Spirit's the one that is right now kind of teaching us. That's the person we call on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm calling it a person, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I would say, but overall, the book's teaching us that no one's a pedestal. Everyone's created their own reality. Our thoughts of there's the collective mind. So yeah, but I think if there were to be someone on a pedestal for me right now, it's those three figures, but because they're kind of teaching and leading the show.
Sure. And I think we do, like, as I know, as a child, every teacher I had, I put on a pedestal. I loved teachers, right? Loved teachers so much. I actually ran into a woman during Christmas, and she's a retired teacher. And And she does this really great thing around Christmas time that I really enjoy. And so I was chatting with her and just saying, once again, you just did a beautiful job of this. And I just had to tell her, I know I've told you this before, but I never got to be a student in your classroom, but you and I would have been amazing together, because I would have just loved everything he said. And I would have just been that student that just like wanted to please the teacher too, like teacher on the pedestal and me doing anything to please that teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was very much I want to, and this is where, okay. So yes, I was very much, I want to please the teacher and all this stuff, but want to know what? Actually, I will scratch what I've said about Course in Miracles to a degree about the pedestal thing, because as I've been doing this, I don't know if it was before we started A Course in Miracles or what, but at some point I was like, I'm tired of being like the perfect student, and I'm going to try to
you and I've
stop.
chatted about this. Yes.
And
yes.
so I think that pedestal aspect of my life of whoever's the authority, is starting to go. I do have this thing and me and my boyfriend always laugh about this, but like I could be hanging up laundry on our balcony, which we are allowed to do, and I could hear someone yell at their dog or something, be like, hey, and I'll think that I got in trouble, and I'll always be like and Matt's like, honestly, he's like, if we were in public and there were cops walking by or something like that, they're like, they would always think that you're hiding something, or that like you're the guilty one, because you always look around as if you're in trouble. Like, so yeah, that's one thing that needs to break.
Right. You can just let that go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else to add for this week?
Okay, now the pedestal again just reminds me of what I had shared, and it's just a perfect word about like meeting this new woman last night.
Yeah.
And it's so easy when you're like, oh, wow, you've done all these things, and that person just goes whoop up onto this pedestal.
Yeah.
And just me observing myself having not done that while still really enjoying her gifts and her story. And just feeling the oneness in it, instead of that one of us needs to be on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are all peers.
We are. And the other thing that comes to mind when I think of pedestals is I've told my son before, I love and adore you.
Oh.
And he's like, yeah. And he'll say to me, Mom, I know that you love me and I love you too. You do not need to adore me.
Oh, that's sweet.
Right. It is, right? And it's him going, Mom, like, ease up. That is too much pressure. Adoration is too much pressure. And I know that's what he's telling me, right?
Stop with the love bombing.
Yeah, the love he's good with. It's the adore. It's that word adore.
Yeah.
It's like, you do not need to adore me.
Oh, that's cute though.
Yeah.
You can adore me.
I adore you, Chantal.
I adore you too.
But that's his old soul coming through, and just knowing what is all encompassed in that word adore. And then like again, the pedestal then makes me think of boundaries. And then that makes me think of the when you were sharing about like when we become aware that our parents, when you became aware of your mom and how, the difference and the this and the that, and it has to do with boundaries as well, right?
Yeah.
And the law of detachment and all kinds of really great stuff in there too.
Oh yeah, I had way more boundaries with my dad, and so he was never on a pedestal for me. And it wasn't because he ever did anything bad or he was a bad person. I just didn't connect with him as much. So
yeah,
it was very easy for me to create boundaries with him. Meanwhile, while with my mom, it felt like I wasn't allowed to create boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. I can relate.
Here's an interesting question. As someone with multiple children,
yeah,
do you feel like okay, because I hear this a lot where I get, growing up, I was always told I was like the old soul, or like, when kids are told like, oh, you're like an old soul, a wise soul, There's certain
Yeah.
kids that get said that a lot. Do you notice between your kids that like one's the old wise soul, or one's the old soul, one's the wise soul, or one's the free soul, or do you notice like the difference between, or?
Yeah. So I see both my kids as old souls.
Okay.
And my son is the old soul. And he says himself, I was born in the wrong century. Like, he was the old soul that was out in the bush, hunting and trapping and using plant medicine and just leading his best life.
Yeah.
My daughter is the old soul that was in community and sharing and giving and communicating and questioning and asking and all of those things. So both, I get old soul vibes from both of them.
Yeah.
But each of their old souls were leading very different lives, like the souls that I can sort of feel into.
Oh, that's awesome.
I do have a friend who, when we were having our babies, her oldest, her mom would always say, your oldest is an old soul. Like, he looks around the world and is like, oh yes, I remember this. I remember this. I remember this. Because then your youngest is brand new. He has never been here before, she said, because he looks at everything and is like, wow, like every, yes. And she said this when the youngest was still really little. And she said, like, he looks at every single thing with completely fresh eyes. He has not been here before.
Oh, that's really exciting to observe.
Neat, hey?
Yeah. Oh, I would love, like, I can't wait until they're older and they can get Akashic record readings and things like
yes. That. Hey? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very neat.
Excellent. Well, anything else we want to add before we go today?
I think that's all I've got. How about you?
Well, I guess the theme this week was the pedestal.
I guess so. I like it when it happens naturally and organically in a conversation, right?
Yeah. I like it.
Beautiful.
Cool.
No push, no hustle.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today.